Welcome to the WTS WaveStream podcast, where we explore stories at the intersection of compliance, connectivity, and innovation. Today's episode is extra meaningful to me because I'm joined by the first two people I ever hired to work on our Power Platform team. And wow, have they come a long way. Abby, a former social worker, and Caileigh, who came from education, both had zero experience in low-code tools when they started. Now, they're supervisors, subject matter experts, and truly shaping the future of our work. We'll talk about what it's like to break into tech with no prior experience, how low-code tools are transforming business, and why military spouses are uniquely equipped to thrive in this space. I'm your host, Nicole Townsend. Let's get started. So Abby and Caileigh, you guys are my first duo.
It's an honor to be grouped with Abby.
I know. Well, Caileigh and I have been shoulder to shoulder the entire way, so just as fitting.
Right. So you guys were the first hires for the Power Platform team with Base, right? And you guys started at the same time.
No, I started one day after because my shipment has arrived from our PCS on that day when Abby started. Right. So I delayed by one day.
You were moving from Peru to California.
We had moved 6 months prior, but it took that long for us to get our belongings.
Now, what were your first thoughts when you heard the words Power Platform?
I had to Google it.
Yeah, I don't even really remember, but it was essentially nothing, like no knowledge. So,
right.
And you guys weren't in tech jobs before either.
Oh, no, absolutely not.
Abby, what did you do?
I worked in foster care, so I was a social worker. So for this 2 different states, actually, but most recently Oklahoma. So about as far away from tech as you can get. Very people, human services oriented.
Okay. And Caileigh, you were in education, right?
Yep, I was a teacher, and so we had just PCS'd, so we'd only been in California a few months, and so I got in a temporary consulting job writing a history class for an online learning program.
Technology is a great space to get into for a career change because it's changing so fast that anybody can get into it at any time and learn what's new and what's relevant these days.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that. The technology, because it's constantly changing, is in a lot of ways, as long as you are good at learning things and you're a quick learner, that technology is a good field. Because even if, like you said, you know the basics or you know the logic, you spend an awful lot of time learning the tool too. Like you just really do, because each one's a little bit different. And it just takes some time, so you might as well put effort into that as opposed to something more generic.
Right. For anyone listening who's not super familiar, low-code platforms like Microsoft's Power Platform are basically tools that let you build apps, workflows, and automations with minimal coding, sometimes no code at all. And it really opens the door for people who might not have computer science degrees or backgrounds to solve real business problems with tech. Now, when you guys started, we already talked about how you didn't have a lot of experience in technology. When did you feel like it clicked and when you guys were able to actually use these tools to produce business solutions for the customer?
One of the earlier projects was with licensing and handling the licensing for our client with a lot of employees and building an automation that we had to do a lot of research on the permissions and how that would all work together and pulling reports. And I found it to be a really fun, humongous logic puzzle, which I love to do those for fun anyway. And so I was able to really get lost in that project while solving a problem for a client that was really helpful for them and their business.
And when you say licensing, you are talking about Microsoft licenses, right?
Yes. So assigning the Microsoft licenses for the employees, which was dependent on their role with the company.
Okay, and you said a lot of employees, but we're talking 30,000 employees.
That's correct.
Wow.
Yes.
And it used to be done manually with somebody. So someone actually had this task to manually assign this based on job title, and you were able to automate that using Microsoft Power Platform.
Exactly. And not just assigning, but also removing, because it was a business with a lot of high turnover.
One of the things that I found most enjoyable and challenging was doing things that you could not find anywhere on the internet. Because some of the things that we had to do was manipulating SharePoint sites using HTTP requests, and I went to the depths of the internet trying to find if anyone else had changed these settings using HTTP. And the Microsoft documentation was no help, but we were able to figure it out, just testing different things, trying different things, just a lot of brainstorming, a lot of testing. We were able to get it done, something that would have taken, honestly, hours to configure, as well as a lot of possibility for error, just from it being a manual process to automating it. So it was definitely a challenge, but it was a huge satisfaction to figure it out.
It's very rewarding to go through something like that where you can't find any solution and then you end up being the creator of the solution. Cool thing was when we first started, we didn't have anybody to ask questions. We didn't have somebody who was a Power Platform expert. We had to really pave the way ourselves in this company. And then once we got more experience, and we're still learning, I know none of us would have ever claimed to know the most about everything, but we all have our strengths in the Power Platform. And now when new people come on, we're able to provide that mentorship, and the team gains this momentum, which just makes us even more of a productive consulting team because we have each other to use as resources. I think that's really neat. And you're right, we're producing solutions in a matter of a week turnaround versus what could have taken months if we were doing traditional development work. And I think once the customer sees that, they're just in awe. They're a little hesitant at first sometimes because a lot of people don't know the Power Platform or what the capabilities are. And when they start seeing the work in action, it becomes such a powerful tool. It speaks for itself and people get hooked. There's so much you can do with it.
It also has the advantage of being included in a lot of Microsoft licenses. So the company might already have access to it and they're not even utilizing it. And it can replace a lot of paper processes or convoluted Excel processes and things that they currently have, all for no additional cost.
Exactly. And what I was going to say too is a lot of people hear automation, and this was probably true for myself, and you assume it's a notification or something like that, but there's so much more.
So everyone's talking about AI, and I know every technology company is trying to keep up. And one of the coolest evolutions in the Power Platform lately is how easy it is to bring AI into your solutions. And I'm not talking about the big flashy stuff. I mean, like practical, everyday AI that helps you make smarter decisions and save hours of time. For example, we were exploring a solution using AI Builder where you can create models that extract data from forms and recognize objects and images or predict outcomes. And you don't even have to be a data scientist to do it, which is so neat.
One of the biggest strengths, I feel like, is how all the different components can work together. I know a lot of companies use Power BI for analytics, and then you can use Power Automate with that, with buttons inside of Power BI that send things. Like we had one where you would click a button and then you get an email with a PDF version of a report that you could then pull up on your phone, but it was easier to view when you're out on site for these clients. So they integrate together really well. And if a company is already using Microsoft, they're already using a lot of the tools that integrate incredibly well because it's all Microsoft. Permissions are already taken care of. You can't access things that you couldn't access any otherwise. So there's a lot of behind the scenes security features that go into the Power Platform that you just don't even have to worry about. And that definitely speeds up development as well.
Right. And these are tools that people are already comfortable with, like SharePoint, Teams, and Excel. And so that is so great how they all work together. Okay. So more and more companies, and I'm not talking about small companies, I'm talking about large companies, are using low code or no code technologies. It's not a side trend anymore. Companies are realizing that it's faster, cheaper, and more adaptable. And I think our team is proof of that.
I think that Power Platform and any low code tool starts off being a very easy to use, out of the box, do it yourself kind of thing. However, it can very quickly develop into oh, actually, it would be cool if it did this. Oh, it'd actually be cool if it did this. Into much more complex, complicated logic or custom connectors and that sort of thing. And that's where pulling in consultants can really be helpful. I do think it is good to start with your own champions, but pulling in people who have experience, there's just, you can't buy the experience. Like, you got to go through the experience, the effort and the process. So I think that's where it really becomes an incredible tool, is when it's in the hands of somebody who knows what they're doing.
And that I would completely agree. That so many times you're like, oh, I'm just going to whip up this quick flow to process this information so I don't have to worry about it. And so quickly it becomes more complicated, and then you have to pull certain data and you need to use some expressions, and it drops something in and apply to each loop where you're like, I don't want that. And without that knowledge and experience, it could get really challenging. But I think for someone starting out, the business user who might want to do a quick flow by themselves, totally manageable. But if you want to do some more complex automated processes, a consultant would really speed up the process and make sure that it does what you actually want it to do.
Oh, yeah. We have some really cool complex flows that we use to bridge systems together. Every company that grows quickly can understand that soon you have a little bit of a system sprawl issue at times, where you have multiple systems doing different things, but you don't want people to be using multiple systems for the same thing. And so using Power Automate, for example, as a bridge between systems to push information so things are synced up and people don't have to use two different places to look for the same thing, has been a huge game changer for our company. One of the things I've noticed, and honestly, it's one of the reasons you guys have thrived in this space, is that low code isn't just about clicking buttons and building forms. It's about solving real problems. And that takes, emotional intelligence, active listening, and the ability to think outside the box. Now, coming from social work, foster care, and education, you guys were already pros at understanding people's needs, communicating early, and adjusting things on the fly. Those same skills are exactly what makes someone great at designing low-code solutions, because you're not just building apps, you're creating tools that make someone's job easier, that saves time and reduces stress. And it requires a level of empathy and creativity. I saw that firsthand witnessing you guys interact with people, where the customers really enjoyed working with you guys, not just because you created solutions quickly that help make their lives easier. They really enjoyed speaking with you and talking with you. And, you guys were so empathetic to their frustrations if they were frustrated with the technology, because technology is frustrating, especially if it's always changing and someone's not familiar with it. So I think that you guys that's what really put the edge on our consulting team, is this team is so creative and really empathetic to the customer's needs.
Yeah, I'm glad you bring that up, because I wasn't even thinking about that, but that's one of the things I like most about my job. I like the logic and the problem solving, but I love working with a client and trying to figure out what it is that they want, because sometimes what they say is not always exactly what they want, because they might not have a full understanding of what
What's
it is
possible.
what's possible, and
Yeah.
even just how the pieces can work together. So I like that collaborative part of it.
I would 100% agree because, the client, they're the expert in what they do, right? Like, so whether that's building new facilities, and they're amazing at it, and they know what they want, but they don't at the same time because they don't know what's possible, like what Caileigh said. So but they know that they want it to be easy and they want it to be intuitive to them. And that is another thing, is that when it's a custom solution, it can be exactly how they want it. Whether it's things in the order that they want, or if it's you can design it to fit the company's workflow and not change the company's workflow to fit the tool. So I think that a lot of companies find that beneficial as well.
Great. We've seen and we've experienced this as a company too, where we buy a tool and we pay good money for it, but it gives us a little bit of what we need and a lot of what we don't need. And so you're right, Abby. We are able to create these solutions where we're able to give people exactly what they need and, build with them as their needs evolve.
Mm-hmm. And it can be iterative. You start off small and then you add on to it, and you train users and then you add on to it, just through various sprints or iterations, and you just keep going with it as feels comfortable and feels natural.
We spoke a little about how easy it is to use the Power Platform tools with other Microsoft 365 applications like SharePoint and Teams and Excel, but the Power Platform also has built-in connectors that can connect to other third-party stuff.
Yeah, there's actually over 1,000 different Power Platform connectors just out of the box that are already created, whether by a third party or by the company itself that's, a certified connector. So there's a surprising amount of out-of-the-box integration ability. And then there's additional, whether it's HTTP requests or custom connectors, there's additional things you can do to expand if that doesn't meet your needs. And we've done the same with Jira as well. We actually used Power Automate to integrate between of all things, a co-pilot, a virtual agent, as they used to be called. I guess they're co-pilots now. They're just co-pilots. Between a co-pilot and putting a Jira ticket in for Jira Service Management.
Well, that's right.
So we used Power Automate for that.
Okay, guys, guess what? Are you ready for the rapid fire round?
I've been waiting for this my whole life.
Oh.
Rapid fire round.
All right. Favorite tech gadget, Abby?
I gotta go my phone.
Yeah, Caileigh?
I said I wasn't going to choose my phone, but I just don't. It's a gadget with like a bazillion gadgets within that gadget, so I have to go with that.
It's the ultimate multi-purpose gadget. It really is.
Exactly.
It is.
Exactly.
If your job was a movie title, what would it be, Abby?
Something along the lines of the brainstormers or the problem solvers or something like that. Maybe that's just the part that I like the most, but something along those lines.
I like that. Caileigh, what about you?
Mine's far less dignified as yours. Mine would be, try it now.
So mine's like the drama version, like the action adventure film, and hers is the comedy special.
Yeah. Try it now. That's also often how development goes. You change one little thing and try it now.
It's like,
Right.
You're missing a quotation mark. Or a comma.
Or a comma. It's always
That's
a comma.
so relatable. You see your Power Automate flow history and it's like fail, succeed. Okay, because you two are my first double podcast guest, you guys get 2 bonus questions.
Ooh.
They're related, but different. Okay, what is your favorite Power Platform application?
I'm going to have to go with my first love of Power Automate. She is the one I started with. She has a new designer now. I'm not a fan. I'm working on it. But I
It's
love
hard to
Power-
get used to
Power Automate.
the new interface.
It's a struggle. There's a lot changed, but we'll change together. It's okay. Power BI is incredible for data, but Power Automate is just, to me, the glue that binds everything together.
It really is. What about you, Caileigh?
It's like picking a favorite child. I love Power Apps. Initially, that was my first love, but then had a lot greater use case for Power Automate. So I begrudgingly got sufficient with that. And over time, it's a toss up. Power Automate is so fun. And Power Apps is so frustrating and then so fun and then frustrating again. So,
So it makes it more rewarding at that.
And even better if you can use them both together.
What about your favorite action in Power Automate or most used action?
I was going to say the same, compose.
Compose. Now, to people who might not be familiar with Power Automate, what is the compose action and why is it so useful?
It is whatever you put into it, which it sounds so stupid, but it is so useful for debugging or just manipulating data, whether it's in an expression or just pulling things out to make it super clear about what's going on. So that's my personal favorite. I didn't even think there was a use for it at the very beginning, and now it's my most used one.
Yours too, Caileigh?
It might be that. Yes, it's one of those actions that it just helps in development as you're building something and you want to see what the data is doing or how you can manipulate it and use it later. And it's invaluable.
Well, I have a second favorite if us both having the same favorite isn't working. And that would be HTTP with Azure AD. And that is because you can use HTTP requests within the Microsoft Azure environment. So you don't have to provide additional credentials or anything like that. It uses your own credentials associated with your account, but it really opens up a lot of possibilities for getting information and posting information across Microsoft.
Yeah.
What have you used that for?
Oh, well, there's a certain field that isn't available on you have the regular get users action within Power Automate, but it doesn't pull in, I think it's office location. So we needed to use that other action to get office location, which sounds super random, but it's what we needed it for.
Things you don't find on the web all the time.
No. This is another one of those.
That's great that you found that, though.
Oh, yeah. It was invaluable because this customer, they stored an important field under office location that was not actually office location. They used it for a unique identifier. So it was absolutely required that we figure it out. And we did. We got it.
Now that you guys have become familiar with the Power Platform for a couple of years now, what's next? What's next on your list to get more comfortable with? What do you want to learn more about within the Power Platform ecosystem?
Honestly, I feel like you can always learn more with the tools that we already have because things are constantly changing. There's always more that you can do with Power Automate and Power Apps and Power BI. I guess this is a piece of that. They have a new designer, and it's just a new UI, but it has some features that are a little different. And I am begrudgingly trying to use that more because I think it's going to have some features that are really important, like versioning for the first time.
This is the Power Automate new interface?
Power Automate. Yep.
Okay.
So for automations in a solution, there's now versioning, and you can publish certain versions, which has not been the case before. So we've had to have different ways to make sure we don't override an automation that's in production.
What about you, Abby?
Oh, that is a good question. I've been sitting here thinking about it. I really do want to learn more about Power BI. I have a crackerjack Power BI specialist on the team, so thankfully I don't have to do a whole lot. But I do know that it's so important and is extremely useful just for data insights in many applications. So I would love to learn more about Power BI. I'd also love to learn more about the pro code development, which is interesting in a low code discussion, but the pro code side, that integrating things within the Power Platform, I would love to learn more about that. So even integrating things like more like logic apps and things like that. So.
Okay, Abby and Caileigh, thank you so much for doing this podcast with me.
All right.
Thanks,
See y'all later.
All right,
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for joining us on this episode. I hope hearing how Abby and Caileigh use low-code tools to drive real business results gave you a better sense of what's possible with the Power Platform. Whether you're looking to streamline operations, reduce manual processes, or build smarter systems without the wait, this technology and our team can help you get there faster. Until next time, stay compliant, stay connected, and keep innovating.